Hello, COMS 622 classmates. My name is Ellie Frazier, and I'm going to be presenting on chapter 5 today, which is all about motivating behavior. And so if you're going to follow along with the PowerPoint, feel free to do that now. And you can open it up starting with slide 2 right after the title slide, and we're just going to jump right in. So what is motivation, and how does motivation relate to the workplace? You might be wondering, why is there an entire chapter dedicated to that? Well, motivation is important to managers and bosses because employees who are positively motivated are more likely to produce better work and have more positive outcomes for the organization. So it makes sense. Managers and bosses will want employees to be motivated, so they work harder, they work more efficiently, they work better, so that things can run more smoothly. The book actually gives us a really cool way to kind of evaluate how motivation fits into the framework. So it gives us an equation, and hopefully you're looking at this right now as I'm talking about it to give you a better visual picture of it, but P equals M times A times E. So performance equals motivation times ability times environment. So we've got the three factors there that really influence how someone's going to perform. The environment is important because if employees don't have a proper workspace or work environment, it might really distract them or make them less likely to want to be doing their work. If an employee doesn't have the ability or the knowledge to do the job effectively, they'll have to maybe do some training or things like that. But then we've got motivation, where it's kind of an internal thing. So ability and environment, managers are really able to work on and evaluate, but motivation is one of those things that's a little bit more difficult and tricky to nail down how each person's motivated, because it can be different, as we'll discuss later on. On to slide 3, we've got the motivational framework. So this is really cool. It's kind of even taking a step further back from the definition of motivation. We're going to really look at each specific thing that happens that causes us to be motivated, so really breaking it down. And first, someone's going to experience a need deficiency. So you need something. You need maybe a pay raise. You need a new pair of pants because yours have holes in them or something like that. You experience a need. It can be a whole range of things, pretty much anything you can think of. And then you're going to search for a way to satisfy those needs. So maybe you're going to look up a new pair of pants. You're going to look up a pair of pants that last longer. Or you're going to look for a job that has a better salary, or you're going to ask your boss for a salary. And then you're going to choose exactly which behavior or behaviors you're going to go with. You're going to enact those behaviors, so you're going to perform some of those behaviors depending on if you picked one or multiple. And then you're going to experience a reward or punishment. So depending on what you do, it's either going to be a negative outcome or a positive outcome. Maybe you buy a pair of jeans that end up being cheaper than the other ones because you needed to save money, but then they only last for 2 weeks. Or maybe you ask your boss for a pay raise and he decides to fire you for some reason. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, maybe your boss just does give you the pay raise. But say he does it, you might decide that you need to find a new job or work harder or different things like that. So after you experience the reward or punishment, you're going to kind of reassess those needs. So what happened? What did I do? What happened? And what can I do to fulfill the need in the future? And all of those processes in this motivational framework kind of take place very quickly internally, and you might not even think of them like that. There are some big life decisions that, yes, you can, like, okay, I did work through every part of this framework, but a lot of times it's very quick, it's very internal. You oftentimes don't pull it apart like that, but it's helpful to have that guide just to kind of see and be able to relate it to or apply it to situations in your house. So in your house, at your company. So here we go. Slide 4, we've got some early perspectives on motivation. So we've got the traditional approach, which assumes people are motivated economically and work hard when money is on the line. So when This is kind of the older, it says traditional approach, so I think the book says it was over a century ago that this kind of became an approach. It's very cut and dry, like the more money, the harder the work, something like that. The human relations approach assumes that people want to feel a sense of belonging and that they're cared about. So including employees in decision-making processes and other company things can really help boost motivation, boost their confidence, and encourage workplace performance. And then we've got the human resources approach, which this one's most commonly used today, which assumes people want to contribute and are able to make genuine contributions. Contributors are viewed as important to employees and the company. Managers in this approach are expected to create an environment that promotes this, and to really make good use of each person at the company. So say someone, works an accounting job but has a background in theater or video production or something, and they can really apply or give insight to something else. So the company wants to use every skill that person has, and really get away from just the cut and dry of show up to work, don't really talk to anyone unless you have a question, get your work done, that type of thing. It's a lot more collaborative. Moving on to slide 5, individual differences in motivation. So different things motivate different people. We talked about this earlier. You shouldn't assume that the same things that motivate you motivate other people. Even simple things like keeping a house clean, like you might be motivated to keep your house clean because of all these different reasons you have, and other people could care less about their house being clean or being extra clean. It's just a difference. We're all wired differently, but there are some ways that you can kind of group people, I guess I would say, into categories. So of course not any two people are the same, but there are general characteristics of people where you can kind of group them together, but never assume that everyone, especially if you're a manager or something, everyone can be grouped into the same category. So let's move on to slide 6, and this is kind of just a little graphic talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll just read through it really quick. If you don't know what this is, it's a need-based perception on motivation, so we'll get to that in the next slide. But he was really one of the first people to come up with this need-based motivation system. And the pyramid, although I don't agree with all aspects of it and his theory entirely, it's interesting to be able to see the progression. So you've probably heard of it, but first we've got the physiological needs, which can be something like, if in life, sustenance, food, water, but in your job it could be a base salary, having a base salary that will be able to provide for yourself. The second level is security needs, so stability in life, and then maybe in work it's a pension plan. The third level is belongingness, and in life it could just be friendship or romantic relationships, and then at work it could be friends at the workplace, so groups of people you feel comfortable working with, friends that you can have a good time with at work while still getting a lot of work done. The fourth level is esteem needs, so it could be your status in life, but at work, something like a work example would be your job title. So efficiently, moving up on the ladder and kind of increasing your position in the work world. And then the fifth level is self-actualization. So it's achievement in life, achieving things you've set out to do, and at work it may be getting a challenging job or, kind of completing a challenging task that really makes you feel fulfilled. So that's just kind of a little overview. For the sake of time, I'm going to move on. If you go to slide 7, I talk about more need-based perspectives on motivation, and these assume that need deficiencies cause behaviors. So the next theory, I'm going to try and run through these pretty quickly because for the sake of time. So we've got the ERG theory, which kind of extends off of Maslow's theory, and again in the book there's lots of diagrams, and and graphics of all these that can help you piece them together. About the ERG theory. E stands for existence, R stands for relatedness, and G stands for growth, and all of those kind of fit somewhere within his hierarchy of needs. But this theory extends past that because it incorporates something called satisfaction progression and also a regression. So it's a frustration regression. So that, which is kind of saying if you are not moving forward on the hierarchy, you can also be moving backwards, which is something Maslow didn't include. And then we've got the two-factor theory, which isn't accepted today by a lot of people, but it's still one of the theories that was thought of. And in this theory, you have two different scales, motivation and hygiene. And motivation is a separate scale, and hygiene is a separate scale. And motivation goes from satisfied to not satisfied, and hygiene goes from dissatisfied to not dissatisfied. So it's kind of a weird setup, but again, there's a diagram in the book of that one, and for the sake of time, I'm going to keep moving on. We also have the acquired needs framework, which is one of the more interesting ones to me because it incorporates the cultural upbringing of others. So it centers on need for achievement, power, and affiliation, but those are different for people based on the type of culture or environment they grew up in. So definitely read more about that one. And then we've got some process-based perspectives on motivation. So equity is part of the equity theory of motivation, and that basically means the belief that you're being treated fairly in comparison to others. So the equity theory of motivation focuses on people's desire to be treated with what they perceive as equity, and what they perceive as inequity is something they're trying to avoid. And then we've also got the expectancy theory of motivation, which suggests that people are motivated by how much they want something and the likelihood that they're going to get it. This one's also really interesting because within this theory, we've got the effort to performance expectancy, which is how much do I think the effort I put in will affect my performance? And then we've got the performance to outcome instrumentality. So how much do I think my performance is going to affect how well the outcome is. So if you think, okay, the effort I put in is really going to make me have a great performance, but will it result in a better outcome even if I put all this effort in? So it's a chain of events that kind of have to happen for you to believe that your effort or motivation will be worth it. So let's move on to slide 9 really quickly, which is learning-based perspectives. And these I'm just going to run through really quickly for a little overview. We've got classic conditioning, which is something Pavlov kind of pioneered, and that really only works in the simplest type of situations if you're applying it to a work scenario. We've got the reinforcement theory, which is if you do something good and you're rewarded, then you'll keep doing it, and if you do something bad and you're punished, you'll be less likely to do that action. And then we've got behavior modification. So this is the application of the reinforcement theory to influence the behaviors of people in an organizational setting. So this is the one that you could apply to your organizational setting. And you can use various kinds of reinforcement when employees are observed acting in desired or undesired ways. So rewarding them for good work and maybe punishing them or not rewarding them for subpar or bad work. And that's a really quick recap. I think I went a little bit over, but hopefully you guys got the gist. My questions for you are, how does motivation influence your behavior in the workplace? So do you have certain situations in which you find yourself being more motivated or less motivated? And then do any of these motivational theories seem more applicable to your personal style of motivation? And if so, why? So did you particularly relate to any of these theories? So I hope you guys enjoyed my presentation and I hope you guys are having a happy Thanksgiving break and have a good holiday season.